In this video, we're going to use Taiao to create a procedural umbrella plant. This is going to be a indoor species of plant, and we're going to use toLeaf and toPlant to generate the tree. We'll then look at rendering it in Redshift. Okay, here we are inside of Cinema 4D, and this is our reference of the umbrella plant that we're going to work on. And the first thing I want to work on is actually modeling one of these leaves. So I've got some more reference here. I'm just going to bring this up. Let's just bring the scale down. So you can see this is the leaf we want to make here. So we're going to go to INSYDIUM, Taiao, and we're going to add a toLeaf, and that creates this leaf geometry. Let's go to the main tab. And here we can start looking at creating the shape. We're going to make one of these leaves, and that's going to be the default. So let's add some more geometry. We want 12 in the length segments, and let's say 4 in the width. And then all we want to do is we want to create the profile, which is half of the shape of the leaf. And this is our profile spline here. So I'm going to bring it down, add a point, and bring that up. And then all we want to do is adjust these tangents to get the shape that you want with the leaf. And it'll be something like this. And these are slightly heavier towards the end on this curve here. So we'll just bring this across, something like that is fine. That'll be close enough for the leaf. Let's make sure this tangent's at the bottom so we get that point. Then we want to add a bit of depth to it. So if we go to the thickness slider, let's set a thickness of 1, which you can see brings up the edge there, but that's a bit much. Let's go 0.5, and then we're going to open the thickness twirl down, and that gives us a depth spline, and that spline is the length of the leaf here. So we've got the start and the end, and you can adjust the thickness. So I'm going to bring that down, bring this up so it's thicker in the middle and tapers back down to a point at the ends. Something like that looks fine. Okay, let's add a single subdivision just to get that smoother on those edges, and that looks good. Next thing we want to do is we want to create a vein, so the mid vein along this here. So we go to the veins tab and we add a mid vein. With the mid vein, you've got the profile, which is the profile along the length of this vein. So let's just bring down the end and give it a nice curve so it's not a linear line. And we want a petiole because these have these petioles that come out from the connection here. So we'll come down and we'll bring the petiole offset, just bring that up. Let's remove our wireframe, so NA, so we can see a bit better. That looks good. Happy enough with that. So let's add our modifiers so we can get a bit of shaping on here. So we'll go to modifiers, and we'll first add a fold, and we'll bring down the shaping curve here to create that nice curve that you get on these leaves, which is the curve as it folds. Bring that up. I'm going to bring it up quite high, something like that, and then I'm going to bring it down at the tip so it's higher up here, and then it tapers out, which is cool. Okay, we want some furling, so we'll add a furling layer. This gives us our basically gravity, the look of gravity on these plants. And we also want it on the stem, on the petiole. So let's go back to the main tab, and here for the modifiers we can add a furling for the petiole, which then we can adjust to suit. And we'll go with something like that, just to kind of keep that curve nice and smooth. Okay, that looks good. Back to the modifiers. Going to break it up a little bit with some turbulence. So we'll add a turbulence layer. Make sure you set the bias, because if you don't set the bias, if we look at our tip here and increase the strength, it starts to break the tip, and it'll also break the base here. So we need to adjust the bias slightly just to fix that. That looks fine. Maybe a bit less, but yep, I'm happy with that for our main leaf. And now what we want to do is we want to create this shape. To do that, we go to the main tab and change the leaf type from standard to lobed, which creates the lobing system. And then we go into the lobing quick tab and change it from this lobe structure of pinnate to a palmate, which creates this fan system. So let's adjust the stem length. We're going to bring this right down, something like that. That's fine. Maybe a little bit longer, because this is going to connect to our plant. And then we want to change the leaf count to 8 and adjust the fanning. So we go down, and here we have orientation. So the angle is going to angle these leaves. So we can bring those all the way around like that. That's looking good. And then we can create some variations now. So these kind of are sticking up slightly. We can do that with the twists. So if we adjust the twists so they start coming up like that, and then add some variation to that one. We'll add a bit of variation to the angle. And then down further in the distribution, let's close that orientation and profile. Just get some more space. We have some size variation, definitely need that. And then we also want to adjust the size bias. The size bias on a plant like this, what we're looking at is the middle is the middle of the plant and the end is the ends. So what we want is these two guys to be smaller and it progressively get bigger. So if we bring this down to about the size we want those base leaves, and then add a point in the middle, bring that up, you can see we're adjusting the scale of the higher leaves in the fan. Something like that. That was cool. So that's pretty much the leaf done. I'm happy enough with that. We can move on, but let's just put some quick materials on it. So we can go to the materials and open up the materials. I've got a few Redshift materials already set up here. First one is leaves, so we're going to drop the leaves on, and this is using a image from our texture images that you can download on the website. It's a cropped leaf texture. So we've got that one, that's on our leaves, and then we've got a stem here, so I'm going to get the stem and I'm going to put that on the stem and mid vein. And this one is a gradient done inside of Redshift, just using a ramp, and these ramps do not show up in the viewport, so this will show up in the render. So looking in the viewport, it's just going to look white, but that's fine. Okay, so here's our leaf, and that's looking pretty cool. Next thing we want to do is model our plant base structure with the branching. So let's come out a bit. Let's close this. Go to INSYDIUM, Taiao, and we're going to add a Taiao plant. The Taiao plant, we need a trunk, like that, and it's not a massively tall plant. Let's say this one's about 80 centimeters, so we'll just go 80, and let's put 2 in the radius. In fact, let's go to 1 because they're quite thin, these plants. Cool. Now if we get our wireframe up, you'll see that there's a very low resolution on this, and because we're going to have quite a lot of branching, we need more resolution. So we'll go to the global settings and we'll adjust the segment resolution to 1. And you can see that adds loads more segments along the length. Okay, plant layers, trunk. Let's give it a little bit of natural looking formations. We'll go to the modifiers and we'll add a furling. So we can bend that top a bit and bring that bias down, something like that. That's good. Happy enough with that. And we'll add a turbulence layer. So again, move that bias off the bottom and bring the strength down because it's too strong. We just want a little bit of kinking going on like that. Okay, let's go to the main tab and just taper this end off using our profile spline. Something like that. Looks absolutely fine. And we'll get rid of the wireframes, it's not so noisy, and we'll just put the material on it. So we'll go back to our materials, trunk, materials, and we're going to use our stem. Okay, let's put that so it populates up as well. Okay, that's good. Now we need some branches. So with the trunk selected, add part, we're going to add a branch layer. And for this one, I don't want it coming off the end, so we're going to turn off branch on end. Better. And then all we really need to do is set these branches up, because these umbrella plants, the leaf is on one of these branches. Well, it's basically a very long petiole, but we can just use the branching to do that. So let's put the branch angle up, and in the distribution, let's bring them down a bit as well. So I'm going to adjust the spline, something like that, be fine. And then in the main tab, branch length, we're going to have them longer, but we're going to have them shorter at the top. So all we need to do is the twirl down, length along branch. Again, we can just adjust the spline so the ones higher up are not as long. That looks fine. Definitely want variation, and we want some angle variation in here as well. Right, that's good. And then let's go and add some modifiers to this. Modifiers, we put some furling in here. So just add furling, bring the bias down, add some variation to all of these, like that. And then because that furling has dropped it, we want to keep it going up higher. So go back to the main tab and just adjust the branch angle to suit. Like that. That was pretty cool. Maybe a bit less of the furling. Something like that. Okay. That's good. And now we want to put our leaves on the end. So with the branch, we can add a leaf, which adds leaves all the way along the branch and on the end. And all we want is the one on the end. So to do that, just turn the count down to 0. And while it's got leaf on end enabled, you get the leaf on the end. If we turn that off, that goes. So we're going to keep that because that is the one we want. Then we go to geometry and change the mode to custom. Simply drop in your leaf and it puts it on the end there. So now we need to do a couple of little tweaks here. We want some bigger leaves, so let's make them slightly bigger. Variation, like that. And then we want to orientate it so that they're facing down. So go to orientation, and we have the Y rotation. So let's just drop that. You can see that brings that down nicely. Something like that looks pretty cool. You can variations on that as well. Cool, well, that's good. And next thing, let's just get some more branching. Go to the main tab. Because it's procedural, we can just work this out to however we want it to be, really. Something like that looks pretty cool. I'm happy enough with that. So already, really quickly, we've modeled the base of the plant. And then let's have a look at doing some simple rendering. So before we go on, I'm just going to organize myself. The plant, I'm just going to label it umbrella plant, and then I'm going to just make the leaf a child. And I do that just to keep it tidy in the hierarchy. Don't need too many objects. Okay, so that's a plant set up. Now in the layers, I've got a few things. I've got a scene already and some lights. I'm going to turn this light off now. So we've got a pot, a scene, and an environment, which gives us some lighting. So let's go to our camera, into the camera, let's bring it around. So what we've got is a scene. We've got a little window here. It's casting some light shadows. And let's bring our plant up to fit in the pot better. So bring it like that. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Let's remove this light and then let's go into Redshift. So I'm going to save quickly, go into my Redshift settings, and we'll push play, and then we'll go over what's going on in this scene. Okay, so in the scene, we've got a camera, we've got a light dome with an HDRI on it, which is found in the browser, HDRIs, and we've got a sun and sky rig. So that's giving us our nice shadows and a bit of bounce with the dome light. Then in the materials, so we've got our leaves. And the leaves, as I said, is a texture from the texture packs you can download from the site. Then I've got a color correct, just giving it a bit of contrast, and another color correct to make it brighter. And the brighter is going into the translucency. Now this material is if you go to create materials and you create material, not the standard one, that gives you access to a translucent and backlighting channel. And this is what we use. It's really important for leaves to have translucency, so we're going to use this material for any leaves. The stem is just a ramp. It's a really simple gradient. The same with the other stem. Then our pot is just a noise. So I max on noise and a ramp, which has got loads of knots on it, and that gives us that little bump. So if we zoom in, you can see we've got that little bump going on, and that's just done with lots and lots and lots of knots, and then created as a bump texture. And then we've just got a couple of we've got wood and a wall material, and that's it. That's how to set up the really simple rendering of this scene.